I'm Garrett Dirkmont. I'm one of the chapter authors of the book, The Council of 50, What the Records Reveal About Mormon History. The Council of 50 was an organization formed by Joseph Smith just shortly before he was murdered. And its purpose was to help bring about the political kingdom of God on earth. I think the average member of the church will get a better understanding of why the church left Nauvoo when it did, how they left, what worries they had as they were leaving. I'd like to know a little bit more about what Joseph might have said, or what Brigham might have thought. That's also in this book. Ways to understand these founders of the faith in a better light, and I think in a way that can help us individually have more compassion upon other people, be more willing to show mercy instead of.
Now, I'm sure this contributor to the Mormon documents is quite a nice fellow, has every intention to present to the Mormon faithful an accurate picture of the Council of 50. However, it's like Alice through the looking glass. I think I'm having a brain seizure. He hopes that this volume of the Council of 50 records will give the average LDS member a more accurate picture of Joseph Smith. Yes, that would be nice if Joseph Smith actually wrote these records and not William C. Clayton. Also, he states that he wants to present the fears, the motivations, the persecutions that the saints had to endure when leaving Nauvoo, and the example of Joseph Smith and these early saints hopefully will make us more compassionate and more forgiving. What? He just conveniently fails to disclose that Joseph Smith was threatening war against the United States, while crowning himself king of the world. Yes, not only did he crown himself king of the world, he demanded that the U.S. government go to war with Mexico, annex Texas, and perhaps even annex Canada. Well, I guess if you believe a declaration of war exhibits compassion and forgiveness, yeah, I can see how you might be able to use these minutes of the Council of 50 as an example of forgiveness. These Mormon saints are going to pose a mighty threat from the west and invade the United States with Canada from the north, Mexico from the south, and the Mormon kingdom from the west, creating a pincer-like movement where the United States is surrounded and has to fight at the same time 3 different fronts of the war, and the conspiracy of these Confederates ruled by Brigham Young. So let's review these Kingdom of God minutes and see where they lead us. Because if you are skeptical of their origin, you have every right to be, because even on their face, they are unreliable and inadmissible in court as evidence, and they simply are somebody's fictional narrative of what they wanted to have occurred at the time they purport to create this mythical kingdom of God on the prairie somewhere in Utah. Or should I say Brigham Young and his offspring. Okay, here's the Council of 50 as explained by the editor. It says on March of 1844, Joseph Smith explained his position on Texas in an address to a congregation in Nauvoo. He warned that if the United States did not annex Texas, the Republic would form, meaning the kingdom, the Republic of Deseret or Nauvoo at that time, would form an alliance with the British and would expose America's western frontier to an attack. Joseph Smith explained that many opposed the annexation of Texas because Texas would come into the Union as a slave state, upsetting the balance of power between northern and southern states in Congress. He argued, however, that protecting America from British intrigue and invasion was more important. In Joseph Smith's view, the congressional balance of power could be restored by converting slave states into free states, or by, listen to this, annexing Canada. Yes, we'll just go to war with Britain on 3 different fronts. I think that is what Hitler did when he went after Stalin in the western states. Who knows? Okay, now this is so obviously funny. This is a Brigham Young invention. It is an admission that Brigham Young was a British agent who had been sent over by the British to cause an split between the United States, to go out west and form a Western front against the United States. Simply an admission of treason. They're telling the Congress that unless they annex Texas, like what right does Nauvoo have to tell Texas to come into the United States? Now, in my previous videos, I've observed that these purported Mormon records of the kingdom of God on earth, in which Joseph Smith claimed to be the new king of the world, appear even on their surface to be just a collection of people's memories, such as being taken from William Clayton's diaries of the events he observed. And these diaries were kept in the archives of the Mormon Church. And then after Leonard Arrington was given 10 years of access to these archives, suddenly Michael D. Quinn, one of Leonard Arrington's research assistants, publishes a book in which he discloses this secretive council of 50, or this kingdom of God. We've discussed that this isn't evidence. This is somebody's memory. It's a good narration, but it wouldn't be admissible in court because there's no exceptions, such as there's no exception under the business record rule. There's no exception such as being able to internally verify that this document is accurate, because at the time Joseph Smith was claiming he was the king of the world, he was actually taking care of Nauvoo city business and passing hog laws to keep the streets safe in Nauvoo, and wanting to call caucuses because he was so worried about the Nauvoo citizens having a say in something as simple as keeping hogs penned up. Because as I told you, according to John D. Lee, Joseph Smith was such a kind-hearted person, he could not tolerate even to see a hog fenced in, and he wanted them to roam free. Yes, that's been covered in my previous videos. But now I want to cover a different topic, which is basically that this Council of 50 records, as gathered and remembered by William Clayton and other shadowy figures kept in archives, don't even reflect Joseph Smith's political opinions. As we've told you, city council meetings show that he believes in the vote of the people, believes in protecting the minority, which is the Bill of Rights. Certain inalienable rights should be accorded all citizens, and not even the majority, which is mob rule, can take those inalienable rights against the minority, to the fact that he even wanted the citizens to vote on the hog law. And this was 2 days after this purported grand announcement of Joseph Smith suddenly becoming all haughty and stupendous and princely and kingly and calling on the world to follow his every demand. Very uncharacteristic, but not only that, the rhetoric is taken from a very stilted form of prose that was particularly unique to the Scottish Enlightenment writers of the day. And I will point out some of these internal inconsistencies so uncharacteristic of Joseph Smith. Also uncharacteristic of Joseph Smith is that he would ever have threatened the United States with any kind of violence or war, or even considered getting into some kind of conspiratorial plot with the British to go to war against the United States. Many people have written about Joseph Smith's character qualities, which included compassion, generosity, jovial demeanor, was playful, very loved by people in general. And that is why Brigham Young absolutely needed Joseph Smith to maintain the loyalty of the saints in Nauvoo, while the 12, headed by Brigham Young, went to England to try and convert and pay people with financing by these British oligarchs to come back and carry out the plan to move west and then invade or threaten the U.S. in the Civil War. Well, as John D. Lee writes, while he never saw Joseph Smith ever break the law, he clearly states that Brigham Young demanded of his followers to lie, cheat, and steal for each other, taking loyalty oaths that if anyone should break the oath, his throat should be cut and blood should be on the ground. And John D. Lee also reports that he had witnessed Hosea Stout, head of the police, being ordered by Brigham Young to kill in cold blood, mafia style, all witnesses who threatened to arrest Brigham Young, who was charged with murder, adultery, and counterfeiting at the time. And I went through how they would drag them, they would get them drunk, drag them out, and bury the bodies in pre-dug graves or throw them in the river, the Mississippi River, to get rid of the bodies. Quite brutal. He also ordered his oath-bound brothers, the Danites, that these Danites should steal and hustle horses, cattle, and any property from Illinois citizens and Missouri citizens in retaliation for being run out of Missouri and Ohio, and to gather as much wealth as they could from these innocent citizens. John D. Lee quotes that Brigham Young said, "No Gentile has the right to administer an oath, and that Danite might swear a house full of lies to save one of the brethren of the Danites. Whatever the Danites were ordered to do, they were to do, and asked no questions. Whether it was right or wrong mattered not to them. They were responsible only to their leaders, who were amenable only to God." Under Brigham Young, Hosea Stout, chief of police, murdered many men very brutally. And in another section in John D. Lee's autobiography, he states that Brigham Young demanded that all oath-bound brothers consider him to be a god on earth, that his word should be followed as these oath-bound brothers would follow God. So who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe Joseph Smith, who John D. Lee never saw break the law? John D. Lee mentions Joseph Smith was arrested and tried in Gentile courts 26 times over a 13-year period. And every time, Joseph Smith surrendered and was acquitted. Contrary to Brigham Young, who murdered his witnesses and told his men to also murder them, and then said that when they were called into court and given an oath that they could lie to the court because there was no Gentile court that had the authority to administer oaths to any of his Danite Mormon brothers. Therefore, what Brigham Young was saying is lie, 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 because you're lying for me, God of this world, who answers only to God of the next world. I don't know who that God might be, but certainly not the God that was on the side of the United States government and Mexico when the Californians marched on Utah and demanded absolute unequivocal surrender of these Mormon raiders. So I think I know which God is probably the more powerful, but again, these Mormons seem to think that game isn't over because they have been planning the takeover of the United States through this New World Order stuff that everybody's talking about coming out of the banking system, and they've got the Catholics, and they've got so many people on board. Oh yes, the evangelicals are even on board with the war against the people, the Gentiles, the people that are human, versus the, shall we say, hybrid godlike people of the Nephilim. Joseph Smith Papers, General Smith's view on the powers and policy of the government. This is a speech he gave before Nauvoo on March 7th, when he announced that he was establishing the kingdom of God on earth and that he was to rule as king. I went through here, and this language is just very lofty and very flowery, not in the style of the plain spoken Joseph Smith as we see in some of his letters. So, for example, he states, "The wisdom which ought to be characterized as the freest, wisest, and most noble nation of the 19th century should, like the sun in his meridian splendor, warm every object beneath its rays." Now, that's quite flowery and quite metaphorical. So I wondered, that seems like that might have been copied from someone else who might have also authored this speech. So I copied it and pasted it, meridian splendor, and the etymology. It means midday or middle dies the day. And in literature, it has been used by Thomas Frognall Dibdin. Here's one example. "The sun now shone in its meridian splendor, and every feature of the country seemed to be in a glow with its beams." And remember, look at this, he's calling the sun a his. Normal people would call the sun its. But you see, their God, like Louis XIV, is a sun god, so you call him a he. So then here is another version by Dibdin. "The sun at length shone in his full meridian splendor, and the ocean sparkled as we cut through the emerald waves. Here's another version. This is done by, the Mahabharata. That's the Indian sacred text, and it's obviously drawn from there. Let's go on and find out who Thomas Frognall Dibdin is. Well, here he is, right here. Thomas Frognall Dibdin. And just come down here. He's an author, but Dibdin was the originator of the vice president of the Roxburgh Club, while Earl Spencer was the president. Earl Spencer, we know, is a relative of George Washington, and it was founded in 1812. Well, what happened in 1812? Well, the War of 1812, correct? So why would somebody running for a U.S. presidency use language by a British aristocrat who invaded the United States in 1812? Does not seem very bright of Joseph Smith, but I do believe he's sending a signal that he or the Utah Mormons are pro-British. And so they use all this coded language. One was singing out to Earl Spencer, who probably sent the transcript for Joseph Smith's announcement of the kingdom of God.
I'm a fine young man, I'm living clean. Don't smoke, don't drink, if you know what I mean. I don't touch soda pop, if it has caffeine. You might say I'm a good little sunbeam. I didn't even date till I turned 16. I don't even know the meaning of the word obscene. Flip and fetch and scruddly me. Well, ye many Christmas and fiddle-dee-dee. Mormon.